Welcome to Old Rabbits, another Doctor Who podcast. I'm Will.
I'm Alex.
I'm Nick.
We're watching Doctor Who from the very beginning and then getting together each week to have a chat about it. This week, it's make or break for us as we reach the end of the story that kills a lot of Doctor Who marathons. Are we going to carry on past the Sensorites? Stay tuned. You'll find out at the end. This week, we've done episodes 5 and 6 and survived the Sensorites. We've got t-shirts and everything with Kidnap and A Desperate Venture. Does anyone want to start us off this week?
I will, only by saying that I have said the first 4 episodes, merits aside, I found them pretty boring. I would say the one thing I will say sort of really in favour of the final 2 is that I didn't find them boring. I think there's actual incidents, and it feels like there's more going on in these 2 episodes, especially the last one, than there has been in the 4 weeks preceding them. It really suddenly kicks up a gear. I don't necessarily think they're very good, but there's at least stuff happening, and I was definitely more engaged in these final 2 episodes than I were in the past 4. So there you go.
I particularly like there's a bit in this one where John, suddenly they walk into the room and he wakes up and he goes, "A plot!" And you kind of go, "Yes, John, yes."
Sorry, you say John, do you mean the man John?
The man, John, yes.
The man John, go and by his proper name.
Cards on the table, I was quite enjoying these 2. And then suddenly it felt like I'd skipped an episode and then ending from a different episode was parachuted in. And then they said, we're done now. Goodbye. I was like, what? It doesn't even come out of nowhere, the end. It just is a completely different story to everything we've had so far.
It is. And yet watching it this time, knowing, getting to the end and suddenly realising you're going to get a bunch of abandoned spacemen, seemingly out of nowhere. I was actually surprised watching it back that they do actually seed the fact that these people were here at least once before. I don't think it's seeded necessarily well in that I think you blink and miss it, and how you were meant to remember this over the space of 6 weeks originally is a miracle. But watching it in sort of relatively close succession as we've been doing over, sort of 2 episode chunks, 2 a week. I think it's better seeded than I remember it being.
It really threw me that they don't show up till episode 6, because in my head I was thinking, these last 2 episodes is when the other humans arrive. And I turned on episode 5 and I got to the end and I kind of went, huh. And then you get 10 minutes into episode 6 and you're still going, where are they? I mean, I love it. That's my honest thing. I think it's brilliantly bonkers that all of a sudden it's like, aha, hello men, let's come out of the aqueduct. Are they all dead? What? I think that's great. But I know what you mean. I think episode 5 is so packed that I almost wish that was split over 2 episodes. And I don't mean I want episode 7 of the Sensorites. I just mean it's like Peter Newman has got to the end and gone, I've got all my ideas.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, because I really enjoyed episode 5. I think there's a lot, like you say, everything is starting to go on, and I'm like, I'm really interested to see where this goes. And then, like you say, it's just a bonkers left turn that it takes. And I'm always up for a bonkers left turn. That's always good. And technically speaking, they did make their presence known by farting at Hartnell in the cliffhanger for episode 4. So they've been lingering since then, at least. What were they supposed to have done to Hartnell to tear his coat like that? They never quite established.
No.
They just went and poked their stick at him a bit. I don't know.
I think so. I think they got their little pointy stick and they just went slice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some really weird bits of deductive logic going on in these 2 episodes. So my favourite is probably in episode 5, where the Sensorites are there like going, haha, we've made these guns and they're faulty. These guns won't work at all. And then the very next scene is the one where they sit down and go, you know what, we probably need weapons to come here. You go, hang on a minute. He's had such foresight that he's going to, mess up the guns that they haven't specified they're going to take or need yet beforehand. He's just like, I foresee a need to mess up these guns. You never know, they might come in useful. It is bizarre. It's also the episode that's got a frankly incredible line flub at the beginning between the Sensorites. And I noticed there were definitely more line flubs than usual in episode 6 as well. Are we going to put this at the door of Frank Cox? Because this really smacks of the end of Edge of Destruction, where suddenly the lines were just all over the place with people getting stuff wrong in his directed episodes. Is it a coincidence that the lines are all over the place here too in the 2 episodes he did? Probably, but I'm going to throw it out there as a possible excuse.
I mean, I could easily see it has something to do with the way that he rehearsed things and sort of plotted things out that left the actors maybe not get support is the wrong word. They don't need support, but like get it, like almost interrupted their process in a way that other directors don't, potentially. But like you say, maybe just coincidence.
I think it's telling the 3 episodes that he's done. They're all like this.
Yeah.
It suggests that something somewhere fell slightly awry. As I say, I mentioned the gun thing. That's not the only weird thing in the plot. You got the I genuinely love it in episode 6 where the doctor, says that the Sensorites show great promise because they've agreed not to kill the humans. But earlier in the episode, you had the one, who's been revealed and said, "Well, that Sensorite will be put to death." They're all like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine." So, Sensorite on Sensorite action, that's fine that you can kill them, but killing the humans, no, 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 no. I mean, that coupled with Susan taking the mickey out of their feet, it's not sort of most inclusive script we've seen so far, I would argue. I mean, I know the Sensorites aren't real. I'm just saying.
So here's the thought, and bear in mind, like we've said before, this is my first go for a lot of these episodes, so I don't know a huge amount about them. So this may have been said before, this may not have been said before. Does episode 6 not prove the second elder right? He should be wary of the humans, that they're poisoning his water supply and trying to kill them. Is he technically right?
No, because he says all humans, and it's proven that that's not the case. Except Susan and the doctor make a big thing about how they're not human.
and technically, they are all the humans he knows.
Well, Ian and Barbara. Ian, Barbara, and the man John.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other one. I can't remember. Carol? Is it Carol?
Carol Maitland.
She's so dull. 6 episodes in, I cannot remember her name. That says a lot, I feel.
I get the sense it's a bit like the Chibnall era. It thinks it's making one political message, but is actually accidentally making exactly the opposite message.
You saying that there's some clumsy messaging in the Chibnall era? I will not hear it.
We can argue that point when we get there.
You know what, Will? It's not an argument.
Oh, it'll be an
it's an argument you're going to lose, Alex. I think it's really nice that Barbara turns up at the end and has taken full advantage of the spaceship's tanning booth. I don't know. Has it just been circling a sun? I don't know what's going on there. It's one of those things that people kind of mention to do with the story. It's like Jacqueline Hill goes away, and when she comes back, she's clearly been on holiday. And I think when I originally watched it, the quality of the print or whatever it was in UK Gold wasn't the best. And so it wasn't terrible, but I couldn't see it very clearly. Watch it this time on DVD. Oh boy. I mean, it's such a tan, isn't it?
There's a Big Finish companion chronicle set during those 2 episodes where she accidentally presses something in the TARDIS and gets sent to a sun-drenched planet. And she's there for like 3 months before she can get back. And that's where she gets her suntan from.
I can't tell if you're being serious.
I have a feeling you're joking because I think I'd remember that. And yet at the same time, it can definitely be true.
The thing is, I'm not going to confirm or deny because it's plausible either way.
No, I'm pretty sure this isn't true. And yet at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, I mean, it could be though.
The Simon Guria one is very good.
No, his are very good, so I would remember that. So I know you're lying.
Obviously, the captain of the spaceship, he's disappeared. We don't know what's happened to him.
Never mentioned again. No. I know.
Barbara killed him.
Oh, yeah.
That's also in the companion chronicle.
Yeah.
Quite dark. I do like, because you're right, you say there that this episode makes a real point about the fact that Susan and the Doctor aren't from Earth. And it's such a weird one, the Sensorites, because the first couple of episodes, there's all that stuff where the Doctor says, oh, we humans, and they talk about being human. I mean, I suppose there's nothing in these episodes that says they're not human, just that they're not from the planet Earth. But it's really weird to have started the story with more evidence than ever that they are just humans. And then we end the story with that gorgeous description of Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And Susan talking wistfully about wanting to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really strange. I love it. But it's a really strange change across the story.
It's one of those that's misremembered as well, because she very clearly says it's only orange. Is it either in the morning or the night? Where it's a permanently orange sky now in every single bit of Doctor Who media. It's like they've slightly missed that. I always think. But it did give me a big smile when it got mentioned again in Gridlock. That's nice. It was a nice touch.
In the same way, I quite like that the Ood sphere is explicitly said on screen to be next to the Sense sphere. I just like that as a nice little link.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the mask work is variable, but I think the basic idea and design of the Sensorite is quite nice.
Even though one of them looks like he's been punched in the eye in these 2 episodes.
I mean, it varies shot for shot, doesn't it? Really, it's very sloppy. If we're going on to fan bits of continuity and stuff, we had a big thing in the second serial about the TARDIS lock, how it melts and comes out if you put the thing in the wrong, they put the key in the wrong hole. In this, they remove the lock and then replace it. And after this, it's never mentioned again about this sort of wild lock that comes out and all things like that. Is this the point where he swaps his convoluted lock system for a normal one that anyone can use?
Or, controversially, is it just that they did it in such a way that they actually fused all those systems so they just don't work anymore?
Or was it just a silly little thing that Terry Nation put in as a contrivance to have Cavalan Ford do the trace and not William Russell that has been rightly forgotten because it's a bit silly?
Something silly from Terry Nation? Never.
Well, I do have the shot in the pilot episode where the lock definitely comes out because you actually see it doing it. So I wonder if actually that was a note by David Whittaker that this is how it works and it's put in. I don't know. No, but there's something clearly weird with the lock in that untransmitted pilot that is then sort of called back to in the Daleks. But from memory, it's never mentioned again after this.
I quite like the idea that this is the turning point where he's like, oh, let's do away with all that. Because this feels like the first story where Doctor Who is Doctor Who. And he makes that point we said last week. He said he decides, I've cured this, but I want to stamp it out. And there's a point this week where he says, oh, I don't like weapons and I never have. And it feels almost like this is the character finally crystallizing, not quite into what he will be for the rest of the series, but he's starting to become much more the character that we know. And so it would fit that, I mean, we're retroactively, I suppose, applying this to it, but it would fit that this is the story where he kind of goes, right, I'm going to stop being this recluse almost and start giving myself to the universe.
Yeah, I'd buy it more if we didn't have the last scene in the episode, which is...
Oh, well, that makes no sense at all.
I'm going to be polite here and say not very good. We complained about the end of the Aztecs and how the lead into the cliffhanger was pretty ropey. It was like, well, they've never landed inside anything ever before. Like that feels implausible. That has nothing compared to, well, we want them to start off with a bit of an argument next week, so we have this weird thing. And also, again, weird direction. They're like, well, where are Ian and Barbara? And the implication is they're definitely outside of the TARDIS. And then they come in, and it's like, oh, we've just been saying goodbye. But the TARDIS doors are very clearly just behind where the Doctor and Susan are, which implies that there's a second pair of doors somewhere that we've never seen before. It's very weirdly staged, considering, I'd say at this stage, the doors of the TARDIS are the one constant in the set. That is where they are, and that is what their function is. So it's slightly unusual that they shoot it this way.
But this is the first time we get the TARDIS floating in space, and we don't see it, but they watch the spaceship fly away on the scanner screen. So the implication that the TARDIS is just floating there, that's another turning point.
I wonder if they even gave a thought to where the TARDIS was during that shot.
Absolutely none whatsoever. I mean, they never gave a thought about the lock. We're just making stuff up from the turning point of the character. I think it's lovely. I really like your point, Will, but it's complete waffle. They're just making up as they go along. I mean, I've said before, you know, Hartnell's character is different scene by scene depending on who's writing it. I don't think there's any real effort at continuity. That said, I think you do probably have a decent point there with the character. It does feel firmer here, however many episodes in, that this is a bit more like he's going to be. And actually, from here on in, that he's pretty much, yeah. No, okay, I'll take that back. Maybe you do have a thing on the character. I think wider continuity. No, we're just being fans.
Although I would like to throw out a positive of the Sensorites here, which they in no way intended. So again, retroactively adding something in. But and I can't speak for either of you, but the bit where they're talking about John and how his mind has been changed so that the center means that he's always in fear, even when the rest of his body's like going through the motions for everything else, he's always just in that mindset. It's kind of like, that is such a good description of like anxiety.
Oh gosh, yeah. So isn't it just? And yeah. I wasn't going to bring it up because maybe it sounds it's a sort of thing that can sound a wee bit self-important if I say as someone who is a sufferer of a anxiety medical condition, hearing that was like, oh right, okay, yeah, someone gets it.
Yeah.
So it really, really resonates. It is very nicely done. Yeah.
I get the sense that Peter Newman himself was a bit of an anxious person. I watched this week Toby Haydock's brilliant Looking for Peter. Well, Toby Haydock and Chris Chapman's Looking for Peter. I love it. It's my favourite special feature that they've ever done for the Doctor Who DVDs. I think it's amazing. And it's strange because now I feel like I know a lot about Peter Newman because I watched this feature 15 years ago or whenever it was. And it's weird to look back and think, actually, we didn't know anything. But the picture that gets painted of him in there is of a man who perhaps did struggle a little bit with his mental health. They don't say it in so many words, but his niece talks a lot about the way that he would lock himself away in his study and write, and he would go through periods where he just couldn't make it work and he couldn't sell the scripts, and that got him down and all this kind of stuff. So I do wonder if perhaps, and again, maybe this is me projecting, but perhaps he had personal experience of anxiety, and that's why he does such a good job of putting it in there.
It could be. I think when you first start having anxiety attacks or panic attacks, however you want to phrase it, and you've not had one before, it is the most terrifying thing, and it feels like it's never going to stop. And you can sometimes end up in an anxiety loop where that can last for like days, if not weeks. I cannot describe how horrible it is. And so hearing that description that he does in the episodes, that really, I don't think that's a projection. I think that is someone who has suffered from it, which I would not wish on anyone. It's not a nice feeling. But this all sounds very worthy and important here. The sense.
Well, I would like, but I would like to point out to the listeners that when Nick was just saying that, Will and I were nodding along. That wasn't just him doing a monologue. We were there with him.
Yeah, I mean, Will was also sticking his middle finger up, but you know, but he's always doing that to me.
That's my standard default position.
So it's why we're friends.
Something I do like on a lighter subject, and while we're talking about Peter R. Newman and his experiences and what he puts in the scripts. So, as far as I'm aware, he only wrote one other thing. or well, sort of two other things. So he wrote a Hammer film called Yesterday's Enemy, which came out 5 years before the Sensorites. And as I understand it, he originally wrote it as a play for BBC, and they did it, and it went out, and it doesn't exist anymore. And then Hammer remade it as a film, which isn't an uncommon thing for Hammer to do. I mentioned to Nick and Alex the other day that I had watched Peter Newman's Hammer film. And Alex, you said, "Oh, what film did he write?"
Yeah.
And I refused to tell you, because if I told you he wrote a war film about soldiers that have been cut off behind enemy lines and are fighting against the enemy, I thought that's rather going to give away the twist.
I mean, yeah.
So I purposely didn't tell you. I've never seen it. I've not seen a lot of Hammer films. I've seen the obvious ones. I haven't seen many of their more obscure ones. And I wanted to see if there were any parallels between the Sensorites and Yesterday's Enemy. And the answer is sort of no, not really. They're both, I think what I find interesting about them is that they're both quite negative about not just war, but the process of war. They're both quite critical of it. In Yesterday's Enemy, it's all about how the desperation to win can blind you against anything else, and the atrocities that you might do and commit to get through the war. There's not a lot of links with the Sensorites, but I think you can tell it's from the same writer, and you can tell he's someone who puts a lot of himself into his work, and I think it's really interesting. And while the Sensorites hasn't always been a success, I do think it's a shame we don't have any more scripts from Peter Newman, because I'd be quite interested to see what he would do a year or two down the line when perhaps everyone has a better idea of how Doctor Who works.
I think that's very fair. Like I say, I think there's, even in the ones that I found quite dull, there are good ideas in there. And I think make it 4 parts, have a bit more certainty on who characters are and things like that. I think there's a better version of the Sensorites in there. I've said before, the Nigel Robinson novelisation, that's very good. That's a good time. And if I wanted to, outside of this podcast, if I wanted to re-experience the Sensorites, I'd be more tempted to go to the book than I would the TV version.
I can't remember. Did you say there's an audio one of it?
Yes, they have done an audiobook version. It's William Russell narrating it. It's good. As I say, it is good. It does some really nice things with it, as well as the sort of latter-day Target novelizations, and as well the successful latter-day Target novelizations, I would add. So yeah, it's worth a go.
I might give that a listen. I do, after having done like how we're doing it, I am of a mind to explore some of the William Russell readings.
They're very good. They are. They're very good. I mean, it's like anything. Your mileage may vary with the Target novelizations in general. Some are better than others. I don't think that's unfair to say. As someone who's read all of them, I can definitely attest that some are weaker.
And if our listeners would like to know your thoughts, they can purchase a book.
You can. It's outdated now, but maybe one day I'll do another pass. I don't know. But yeah, it's one of the better latter day ones. Definitely, I enjoyed myself with it. Yeah, and the readings are very good. Nearly universally, maybe 2 or 3 I would say are not quite as successful, but by and large, they're a really worthy venture. So yeah,
I don't know how to segue into it, so I'm just going to drop in the audio jingle of the two of you saying Will's prop that still exists.
brilliant.
Awesome.
Will's prop that still exists.
I've spent 3 weeks hunting through every resource I can find to discover how many Sensorite props still exist. And would you like to take a guess as to just how much of this story has survived?
I'm going to say nothing.
I was going to say, if it's nothing, it's going to be a really short segment.
It's nothing. Next time on Rabbits, no, it is nothing as far as I can see.
Oh.
Having last time discovered, hey, there's something existing from every story so far. I can't find a thing from the Sensorites.
Wow.
I thought I'd found a gun, but it's actually a really good replica. I can't find a thing, but I thought that was a bit dull. and I needed to give you something. So what I will say is that the dress Carol Ann Ford wears in this episode, that still existed at least a few months after recording, because on the 28th of November, 1964, she did a personal appearance as star of television and film to sign copies of the Dalek book at a shop in London.
Wow.
And there's some great pictures of her surrounded by kids. She's wearing like a Dalek thing, and she's wearing the little blue like dress from the Sensorites. So it probably doesn't exist now, but it definitely existed 3 or 4 months after recording. And I wonder, it might have been her own, because the orange and black striped top that she wears in the remounted Unearthly Child, and it comes back in Dalek Invasion of Earth, that was hers, that she brought to set and wore.
Was that orange?
Yeah, it's orange. And the reason we know it's orange is because she also wears it 3 years later in the Great St. Trinian's train robbery. And it's her own top. And so that's obviously in colour, so you can see. So I don't know if this Sensorites dress is hers that she's brought in, or if she bought it. They did that sometimes. I think Wendy Padbury bought her Seeds of Death costume. Maybe she bought one of them. So I have nothing surviving from the Sensorites that I can find. If anyone listening is sat there going, well, I know John up the road has got one of the original Sensorite masks, complete with beard in his shed, then, please call me, because I've got money burning a hole in my pocket. But yeah.
So I don't know where I would place this in the rankings. I presume you guys have thought about it too.
Yeah.
I would probably, I think, and I'll go first, I would put it above Mission to the Unknown. Not Mission to the Unknown. Fuck off.
I mean, that's great, but irrelevant.
I wouldn't put it above Mission to the Unknown.
I'd probably put it above Four to Doomsday. I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Sorry. I would put it above Edge of Destruction, and I would probably put it above Keys of Marinus.
I am probably in agreement. I think Marinus on paper is, in terms of its ambition of let's do an adventure serial every week, I think that is actually quite exciting. But I think the execution, as we've said numerous times, or as I've said numerous times, that really lets it down. I would say that this probably suffers from the same ills, where it's overlong and many of the ideas aren't as good as they should be. Maybe there's just about enough near the end that I forgive. I think it's probably more competently made, and I think that's what gives it the edge for me, even though I did find it very, very boring to start with. I think maybe there's just enough goodwill at the end of it, and the fact that for the most part it's actually quite competently directed.
I think it's a more cohesive whole as well.
Yeah, it is. It's odd in that I mean, genuinely, I find it very, very dull. But I think it's still probably a better execution, though. I think both. I mean, it's a slim gap between the two for me, but it probably just about edges it. Probably.
I was all ready to compromise because I thought you've picked exactly the same position as me. I was thinking weeks ago, I'm going to have to really fight the corner for the Sensorites because I've enjoyed it well enough, but I was expecting to enjoy it a lot more than I have. And I came in today thinking probably I'd put it above Marinus, but I was all ready to compromise because I thought the two of you were going to say below Marinus. So I think actually we're all bang on an agreement with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. If you'd asked me that weeks ago, I'd have said you're absolutely not a chance. And sort of doing it now, I think part of me still thinks that and thinks, well, Marinus is probably better. But I think maybe it's just a better concept than the Sensorites, but the Sensorites is probably better made.
I'd probably watch Marinus over this, but that's not to say that it is in any way better.
No, I get that. I get that. Yeah, I do.
So in that case, with one story still to go in season 1, our rankings are the Aztecs, Marco Polo, an unearthly child, the Daleks, the Sensorites, the Keys of Marinus, and somewhere languishing way at the bottom, the edge of destruction, hurtling back towards the bottom of the list.
Well, time is being taken away from us all and given back.
It's the gift that keeps giving.
Isn't it just?
You may remember at the start of this episode, we said that the Sensorites is the Doctor Who story that kills off most marathons before they even get started. And we said stay tuned to the end to find out the fate of O Rabbits. When we recorded that on the 5th of February, we also recorded, as part of our next time trailer, a note that, of course, O Rabbits was carrying on. We were having far too much fun to let the Sensorites derail us, especially because we all quite enjoyed it in our own way. Unfortunately, fate had other plans in mind, and just 2 days after our recording, we sadly lost Alex. Nick and I have given a lot of thought about the podcast since that time, and as much as we would love to carry on watching our way through, it just doesn't feel right to keep going without Alex. For us, the podcast wasn't really about watching Doctor Who. It was about spending time each week in the company of old friends. And the fact that we got to watch our favourite silly old sci-fi show from the 1960s, that was just a benefit, a bonus. So this is the end of O Rabbits. I'm glad that we made it to the end of the Sensorites. And I've left in the note about staying tuned to the end because Alex had a very dark sense of humour, and I think he would have laughed harder than anyone at the cruel irony of that statement. So it's there in tribute and memory of Alex. Thank you so much for listening to O Rabbit. We've had 19 great episodes. I wish there were more to come, but sadly, that's not to be the case. If you can and you want to say thanks for any enjoyment you've had from the podcast, please do donate to your local air ambulance. The team in Norfolk did their best for Alex, and while unfortunately we did lose him, I think it's a really important service. Thank you again for listening.